here, opening and closing this webinar. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat window. And today's topic is about customers and contacts in English, how to deal with them. And without further ado, I will give the floor to Glennon Kiernan-Lahti, our presenter for today. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. Well, okay, I have Lahti at the end of my name, but as you've probably realized already, I'm not Finnish, but my wife is. So I'm Irish, she's Finnish, and we're like a small little global, multinational, multilingual corporation. And that sometimes leads to communication problems. Where they come from? Well, they come from differences in expectations. My wife has certain expectations about how I speak to her, and I have certain expectations about how she speaks to me. So, for example, we're sitting around the dinner table, and my wife says to me, "Anna suola." Now, I'm Irish. I think to myself in my little head, you can't speak to me like that. You have to ask me nicely. Could you pass me the salt, please? If you say to me, "Anna suola," I'll say, "Get it yourself." So there's a small example of what we're talking about today. How to deal with customers, how to deal with contacts, how to deal with your loved ones in English. So let me explain what we're going to look at today. So we have 4 parts. In the boxes you see showing respect, showing interest, showing understanding, and showing a positive attitude. So we only have about 15 minutes today, so I'm going to take you through these very briefly. And if you're interested and want to know more about them, please contact us. Most of this is taken from what we use as CC material, our own material here at AAC. So let's start with the first one, which is showing respect. The AAA of small talk and please, please, please. Small talk. Okay, most nationalities expect it. And on the left-hand side, I've given you AAA. And that means ask, answer, and add. So after that, we have an example. Welcome, Donny. How was your flight? Donny replies, fine, thank you. Now, Donny has done his job. He has answered the question. So now, what do I do next? I think to myself, okay, Donny has answered the question. So I'll ask another question. Is this your first time in Dublin, Donny? Yes. Okay. So I ask another question. Do you like Guinness, Donny? No. Okay. So we're not having a very good conversation. I'm doing all the work. I'm asking all the questions. And my counterpart is not giving me anything. He's not adding anything. He's not giving me any content. So the O in our box here, how it could go. I ask Donny, how was your flight? He says, fine, thank you. That's the first part. He's answered, but he keeps going. That was my first time flying with Norwegian. Now he's added something. And he can also ask something. Have you ever flown with them? Now I can talk about my experiences. I can mention something about somewhere where I've gone. I can add content. We can start to have small talk conversation. I put a few tips on the right-hand side. They say that for English people, especially English speakers, small talk is like table tennis. Back and forth, back and forth. One side of the table, back to the other. So we change. It's not bowling. It's not your opportunity to say everything you want to say about the topic. We change topic all the time. We go with standard greetings, then we go with facts, talk about your company, talk about your reception area. If you've got a visitor, mention the company's brochures. And then we can move on to opinions and then feelings later on. And one other very small but very important point, no stare. It's polite in Finnish culture to maintain eye contact when you look at people, but for most other cultures, you're expected to look away occasionally. So no stare. Okay, the next part. Okay, the words please and thank you. So we'll start with what's on the left. Direct or polite. So, for example, fill out the visitor information form, please. That is an order. It's as simple as that. Fill out the visitor information form, please. Or please fill out the visitor information. Or we could rephrase it and we could say, would you please fill out this visitor information form? Thank you. Now I made a question out of it. Would you do it for me? I'm not ordering. You can see the other two examples on the left. Please send us a new invoice. Would you please send us a new invoice? Or how about the last example? Do you want to change the color, shape, size? Okay, there's kind of falling tone. Typical Finnish style, not having very much intonation. Or would you like to change the color, the shape, the size? Now I have a rising tone and I sound much more positive. It's on the right-hand side. For many cultures, service is not only the result, it is how we are treated. So other cultures expect to be treated with a certain amount of respect, especially when they are the customer. Customer is king. As I said before, an order with please at the end is still an order. The next tip, use modals, use will, can, would, could, not direct orders. There are things called softening techniques which you can use. And finally, most importantly, smile. Intonation is energy in your voice. The Finnish monotone can sound a little unfriendly or as if the speaker is bored to non-Finns. Okay. Showing interest. Two parts here. How to actively listen and how to ask and answer questions. Okay, showing interest. These are the small noises and the small little words and utterances people make when someone else is speaking. So on the left-hand side, you can see a long list of them. Okay, yes, yes, nodding with the head, right. Really, showing interest. Falling slightly. Aha. Or rising. Aha. Now I start to understand. Aha. Or something like, it shouldn't go both ways. I'll go rising first. Aha. Okay, that's interesting. Or now I start to understand something. Or aha. That sounds like a serious problem. Now, the tips. Why do people do this? And why is it important to do this in English? It shows that you understand and it shows that the issue is important to you. Silence, especially the Finnish respectful silence when someone is speaking, is uncomfortable for most cultures. They will fill the silence. They will keep talking and they will keep digging that hole because the Finn is staring at them in silence and they think, okay, I've got to say, keep talking, keep talking. I'm not being impressive. And as I mentioned before, no staring. Okay, so it's important that we try to show that we're listening and that we're active about this with these phrases. Okay, how to ask and answer questions. Okay, the direct questions, the top of the left-hand side. Very simple. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Where is the damage? That's fine. You want to know a fact. But it doesn't always work for all situations. So the indirect question. Could you tell me what changes you want to make? So that's something polite you could ask a prospective customer, someone who's making an order, you ask something like that in a meeting. If you do it as a direct question, tell me what changes you want to make, it can sound like an order, especially with the Finnish monotone style. Tell me what changes you want to make. Ooh. Okay, sounds very direct to me. Then we can also look at the polite answers. Okay, the first one, yes. Okay, the Finn thinks I did my job, I answered the question. Or we can add something. Yes, we can help you with that. Or, for example, of course, we'll sort it out for you right now if we can. So on the right-hand side, we see that we want to avoid yes, no answers. And we want to do more than just answer the question. Okay, let's move on. Showing understanding. Okay, two parts to this, how we communicate clearly and how we check and clarify. And all the time, we want to be polite. So let's take a look at the first part. Being clear. Well, there are three techniques on the left-hand side. The first one is just repeating. So that's details. Just let me check again those numbers. We can rephrase. Well, in other words, what I mean is that what I'm trying to say is, excuse my poor English, what I'm really trying to say is, we can summarize. Let me check that I've explained everything correctly, as it were. Now, the tips, especially if you're on the telephone or if you have a link meeting, for example, the background noise, heavy accents, bad connections, things like that, they make communication much more difficult. So it is, in a sense, very polite to check that you're being clear and you're being understood. Be precise with letters of the alphabets and numbers. If your communication requires you to use a lot of serial numbers, a lot of acronyms like AODYB, you have to make sure that you can say them correctly and clearly. The last part as well, practice key words. Okay. It is a sign of respect to the customer that you're able to say the names of your products or services or key terms in English. So it's quite important. There are two examples there of two particularly difficult words for Finns to say. Analysis, strategic. So it's worth practicing all that key language. Checking to show that you've understood. Not with that. So we say, pardon, sorry, rising tone. I'm not actually apologizing. It's a polite way of saying, excuse me, could you say that again? I'm sorry, but could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry, did you say 13 or 30? I'm not sure if I've understood you correctly. Did you mean? Now, the tips. It's important that you don't blame the other person, the client, the customer, your business counterpart. Blame yourself. I'm not sure if I've understood you correctly. So we don't say, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand. It's my fault. I didn't catch that. We talked about the listening noises, the active listening. Yes, I see. But it's very important to point out that if the other side is saying yes, yes, yes all the time, it is not the same as saying yes, I understand, or yes, I agree with you. They're probably just saying yes because they want to show that they're listening. You may ask the client to speak up or slow down. It's okay. Native English speakers especially forget and they speak too quickly. So you can ask them to slow down. Positive attitude. English is a very positive language. We're quite soft, we're quite indirect. We like to use positive words instead of using a negative word. So I'll show you some examples. Okay, showing a positive attitude with positive language. So, softening. We can't fix that, which becomes, we might not be able to fix this fight. Okay, what is might? 50% sure, 60% sure, 20% sure, doesn't really matter. It's better than being very direct and say, we cannot. We might not be able to fix this. The problem seems to be quite serious. Okay, if I say the problem is serious or is quite serious, well, that's relates presence. We're talking about something that's true in the past, it's true now, and it will always be true. The problem is quite serious, and no matter what you do about it or try to do about it, it will always be quite serious, and I'm very annoyed. So we like to use these softening verbs, these seems and appears. Flagging words, that simply means using things like unfortunately. I'm very sorry to have to say this, but I won't be able to meet you today. I'm very sorry, but your warranty doesn't cover this type of event. Okay, just a little flag to say, here comes some bad news. Then finish on a high. Okay, please, thank you has also to do with apologizing. I'm sorry to hear that. We're very sorry for the delay. Especially in a customer service context, apologize, even if it's not your fault. It's not taken as sincerely, perhaps, as it isn't finished. We say, I'm sorry. How to end positively? Okay, the example is, yes, goodbye. Or, it was very nice to meet you. Have a pleasant trip back. So, after your visitor, when your visitor is leaving. Or the customer service situation on the phone, instead of saying, yes, goodbye, is there anything else I can help you with? No? Okay, thank you for calling. So, remember to thank the customer, the client, the contact, even if they ruined your day. Say thank you. Please and thank you. Okay, so just to summarize, we looked at showing respect, small talk using please, showing interest, yes, I see, had to ask questions, would you, could you, would you mind, showing understanding, checking, blaming yourself, not the other side. Did I make myself clear? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Showing a positive attitude, saying please and thank you, saying you're sorry even when it's not your fault. So I'd like to thank you for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, here's our email address, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you all, and thank you, Glenn. I hope you enjoyed our first webinar of this autumn, and there will be the next one in October, end of October. We will send a separate invite for that as well. If you have any feedback you want to give after this webinar ends, you will be directed to a short feedback form. From my behalf, I want to wish you all a very, very relaxing weekend and hope to see you in October. Bye-bye.